Hello everyone, we are Group 8 and we are going to present the topic Behavioral Fingerprinting. My name is Rachit Agarwal and I am going to discuss about what is Behavioral Fingerprinting and what are its types. So before proceeding to Behavioral Fingerprinting, let me first discuss about device fingerprinting. So device fingerprinting is a way of identifying the software and hardware of a device in order to distinguish one device from another. Once device information is collected, details are passed through an algorithm that creates a unique ID that can be used to recognize the device. So when fingerprinting a device, various data points can be taken into account. For example, IP address, screen size, screen resolution, time zone, language configuration, operating system, etc. But there are some limitations associated with device fingerprinting. So first of all, accurate device fingerprinting is very difficult to do. Secondly, most of the new browsers such as Google, Apple, Firefox, Brave, these are increasingly limiting the data that the JavaScript code is able to extract, especially when it's done by third-party services looking to track users across websites. And lastly, by removing, consolidating, or randomizing parameters, the browsers have made it very hard to uniquely identify a device by simply looking at standard device characteristics, which is what most of the device fingerprinting algorithms rely on. So, to overcome all these limitations, a new way of device fingerprinting, known as behavioral fingerprinting, is used. So, what is the difference? So, unlike traditional device fingerprinting, behavioral fingerprinting takes into account user behavior. So, it can identify devices and the users they belong to by looking at behavioral patterns and evaluating the similarities. So let me give you an example of behavioral fingerprinting. It can be used when different users sign up for a service in a short period of time with devices that are almost identical. So using machine learning models, behavioral fingerprinting will be able to identify that both users are on the same device. So this has various use cases. So detecting multiple users on the same device is important to businesses such as maybe financial services, where this pattern is often associated with fraudulent activity. Now bad actors will always attempt to circumvent device fingerprinting by changing device parameters. This is relatively easy to do manually or by using any browser plugin. However, behavioral fingerprinting can detect that a device's parameters don't match any real-world devices and will flag that device as being tampered with. So, a device that's been tampered with is almost always a sign of a fraudster. So, now let me discuss about the types of behavioral fingerprinting. So, although this technology is continuously evolving, we can distinguish in three main types. So, first of all, kinesthetics. So, it includes posture and gait. Posture refers to the unique characteristic of an individual's body, position, and weight distribution. And gait refers to a person's walking style, which includes movements such as upper body posture, pace of travel, etc. Next is voice patterns. So voice patterns include voice inputs, which refers to the distinct sound variations that occur when a user speaks or vocalizes. And lastly, device-based gestures, which include keystroke dynamics and cursor movement. So keystroke patterns refers to the typing patterns that differ from one user to the other. And these include a mix of keywords. This includes a mix of keystroke, speed and duration, changes in these, and common patterns that appear when typing words or other sequences. And cursor movements refers to unique patterns in mouse or trackpad cursor movements, such as paths, tracking speed, direction changes, clicks, or any interactions between these. So I would like to conclude by saying that in a world where criminals continue to look for ways around device fingerprinting and browsers continue to increase user privacy by actively preventing fingerprinting, behavioral fingerprinting is a great way to approach this challenging problem.
Hello everyone, I am Vyom Sharma and I will be talking about browser fingerprinting. The first question that comes into our mind is what is browser fingerprinting? Like in real life, your fingerprints are unique and point to you as an individual. In the online world, it is browser configuration that may point to individuals. While many people use the same browser, their configuration of software and hardware are so varied that they can effectively act as user IDs. Browser fingerprinting allows you to get granular information about each parameter of this configuration. For instance, you may be able to learn which default language the user has set for the browser, see which fonts are installed, and many more information. The key is to get as much as information as possible about who you are. Website visitor is based on their browser configuration. This is particularly useful in the context of fraud prevention and cybersecurity, where certain parameters may instantly point to suspicious configuration. For instance, browser fingerprinting may able to detect when users rely on emulator or spoofing tools, which should increase your suspicion about their intention on your website. Because these fingerprints tend to be unique, they can also act as user IDs. This allows marketers and advertisers to track users across the web and deliver targeted content based on someone's online activity. But browser fingerprinting is somewhat contentious practice, which is why a number of privacy advocacy groups have developed anti-tracking and anti-finger techniques and tools.
Hello, myself Aryan Awasthi, and I'm going to discuss about what FingerprintJS library is and how it works. So, Fingerprint or FingerprintJS is a browser fingerprinting library that queries browser attributes and computes a hash visitor identifier from them. Unlike cookies and local storage, a fingerprint stays the same in incognito or private mode, and even when browser data is purged. It's an open source software. It is basically a professional visitor identification service that processes all information server side and transmits it securely to your servers using server to server APIs. It combines browser fingerprinting with vast amounts of auxiliary data like IP addresses, time of visit patterns, URL changes, and more to be able to reliably deduplicate different users that have identical devices, resulting in the 99.5% identification accuracy. Here's an analogy. Let's say you are a detective in a large city like Bangalore trying to find one specific car suspected of being a bank robber's getaway, as captured by a security camera. To find this car, you plan to go to a busy intersection and note all the details of passing cars until you find one that matches the vehicle on the security camera. Ideally, you would like to uniquely identify the car such that only one vehicle in the city fits your description. Otherwise, you'll have to question multiple drivers. If the security camera caught some basic details or signals about the car, you'd be able to narrow your search considerably. Like color, it may be white. Manufacturer, it may be Hyundai. Type of car, SUV. Model name, it may be Creta, or brand of tires. With these signals, you may be able to uniquely identify the vehicle right away, especially if any of specifics are particularly rare. However, hundreds of white Hyundai Creta may have standard issue tires in a city with millions of drivers. The more standard the combination of the signal, the harder it is to get a unique match. In those cases, you hope that your camera may have gotten lucky and matched a unique signal about the vehicle. A white Hyundai Creta with a local company's logo could be unique, even in a large city. There is, of course, the most uniquely identifiable element of a car, the license plate. So it's essential to have a backup for when this identification fails. By assembling a comprehensive set of identifiers, you can narrow the list of suspects to make singling out a bad actor much more manageable. Fingerprinting works almost the same as the example above. Now, you are trying to identify a visitor to a web or a mobile application by capturing signals passed via the visitor's browser or device captured through a fingerprinting function. Browser can capture many signals, including user agent details like browser install and their versions, operating system, hardware details like screen resolution, battery usage, device memory, browser plugins used, the browser and OS settings, WebGL parameters, and etc. When a visitor lands on a web page, the software gathers various attributes. These browser attributes are converted into signals. It is then compiled into a hash that can be stored.
Now I would like to show you what Fingerprint actually knows about you. So this is what the FingerprintJS site claims that they know about you. So I'm using a private mode in the Brave browser, and Brave is known to be one of the very privacy concerned browsers, as discussed later in part of this video. But here they have already tracked out my IP address, whether I'm in incognito mode also, and the browser, that is Brave on Mac OS. Irrespective of whether I'm in private browsing, my visitor ID is same. So that's a very big claim they seem to get right on. And then they're able to show my location too, as they know my IP address. I'm currently in Guwahati, so they're able to locate that. They're also able to find out the screen resolution I'm using, and other than that, they have whatever TLS security I'm using and the cookies using which they're creating this visitor ID. I would like to highlight some of the points which they have mentioned in their privacy policy, or whether this is something right to use. As like any other previous privacy policies, it is pretty much vague in nature. But the 2 points I would like to highlight here is the retention of data policy. They haven't mentioned anything clearly as how long as they're going to retain the data. They said it is going to be for internet analysis purposes, and it's usually retained for shorter period, but they haven't defined what shorter period actually is. And the next point I would like to highlight is the disclosure of data. They again have not given what they are going to disclose. They said it under the banner of personal information, and mention things like third-party vendors, service providers, and basically whoever pays them to provide the data. We can see the clients which use this FingerprintJS library, which we have discovered: Yahoo, eBay, Coinbase, and Agoda, which are very popular services in different domains in the internet.
Hello everyone, I'm Arya Kondawar from IMT 2020. I will be discussing about what's wrong with fingerprinting and how can we save our privacy. The most dangerous part of fingerprinting is websites' ability to collect extensive information to generate a unique browser fingerprint for every user. The major techniques used for this purpose are JavaScript and Flash, Canvas, WebGL, media devices, and audio fingerprinting. Browser fingerprinting can be used as a security measure. However, fingerprinting is also a potential threat to users' privacy on the web. Browser fingerprinting can be used to identify a user. A browser fingerprint is correlated with identifying information. An application or service provider may be able to identify an otherwise pseudonymous user. The adversary and consequences of this threat will vary by the particular user and use case, but can include nation-state intelligence agencies and threats of violence or imprisonment. Correlation of browsing activity. Browser fingerprinting raises privacy concerns even when offline identities are not implicated. Some users may be surprised or concerned that an online party can correlate multiple visits to develop a profile or history of the user. This concern may be heightened because it may occur without the user's knowledge or consent, and tools such as clearing cookies do not prevent further correlation. Browser fingerprinting also allows for tracking across origins. Different sites may be able to combine information about a single user even when a cookie policy would block us accessing of cookies between origins. Tracking without transparency or user control. Browser fingerprinting allows for collection of data user activity without clear indications that such collection is happening. Transparency can be important for end users to understand how ongoing collection is happening, but it also enables researchers, policymakers, and others to document or regulate privacy sensitive activity. A browser fingerprint typically cannot be declared or reset. Fingerprinting can also reveal previously unknown and potentially sensitive information about the user. This includes our personal traits and interests, religious and political beliefs, demographics, etc. Will clearing browser cookies on a regular basis prevent giving up data for websites? Device fingerprinting doesn't work that way. It actually goes far beyond. The fingerprinting technology relies on JavaScript rather than cookies to collect data and is able to track users' activity even when cookies are disabled. No wonder it's been called the cookieless monster. What's more, until recently, device fingerprinting worked under the assumption that a person is using the same single browser all the time. Switching between two or more different browsers would have ruined the fingerprint algorithm or impede tracking. The newly developed method, cross-browsing fingerprinting, is sophisticated enough to identify and track users across multiple browsers and more accurately than ever before. 99.2% of users were successfully fingerprinted by this new technique. It's a win for computer science, but it's a huge blow to online privacy. Can we stop fingerprinting? The practice of fingerprinting allows you to be tracked for months, even when you clear your browser storage or you use private browsing mode. Despite a near complete agreement between standard bodies and browser vendors that fingerprinting is harmful, its use on the web has steadily increased over the past decade. Unfortunately, you cannot make your online fingerprint disappear completely. But there are certain measures that can at least conceal it a bit. As the new cross-browser technique makes it nearly impossible to avoid fingerprinting, we will discuss a few techniques which are helpful steps to prevent web browsers from tracking you.
Hello everyone, I'm Manja and I will be giving you some of the ways to prevent giving up your privacy. The first of all, we would suggest you to disable JavaScript. We'll come with the disadvantage with that, but why we have said this, because the frameworks like FingerprintJS or whatever we use to actually track the behavior of a person or the swipes on the screen is JavaScript based. So you have an option to disable all JavaScript incoming scripts to protect the amount of information you're giving out to the outside world. But the problem which comes following it is that the JavaScript is the soul of your website. So if you're killing the soul itself, you may lose on a lot of functionality of the website in itself. So we feel that, however, this is a very extreme case to protect yourself, this won't be very much feasible. Second of all, we would suggest the using of anti-fingerprinting browsers. There are many browsers in the market right now whose USP is based on privacy and data protection. Some of them you would know are Mozilla Firefox and Brave browser. Brave is a Chrome-based browser which focuses on the aspects of privacy and protecting your information like passwords. So they have an anti-fingerprinting mechanism and they prevent tracking by default. So you can use these browsers to control the amount of information you're giving out. However, even if when you use things like incognito mode or private mode in the browser itself, there is still some amount of signature in the fingerprints you give out to the outside world and they can still track you. But what we can do is decrease the percentage by which they can track you accurately. So, and if you're very much privacy concerned or as mentioned in class privacy paranoid, the only option you have is to use the onion router browsers or the Tor browser. Next, we have is the uses of a VPN, a virtual private network. So when you use a VPN, the biggest factor you cut off is the IP address. So the benefit you have is that they do not have very critical information of IP address and they hence don't have any derivable information like location. So using a VPN will help. However, again, here also the same problem is that since browser fingerprinting is based on JavaScript frameworks, you cannot cut off the entire amount of information that you're giving outside. But still, if you're preventing access to location, that pretty much solves a lot of problems which can be predicted to give you personalized content. Last but not the least, if you use anti-malware softwares and security plugins, then there cannot be any associated websites which send scripts and which gets downloaded and injected in your browsers in the first place. So using of such anti-malware software and security plugins will help you. Some of the security plugins we have are Private Badger, Disconnect, AdBlock Plus, and NoScript, which can block any harmful script which are trying to inject code based on behavioral fingerprinting. For example, Privacy Badger, my apologies, can learn automatically to block invisible trackers. Also, you can allow these security plugins to look for specific kind of scripts on specific websites only where you suspect that there might be a breach of privacy. So we can customize those software to target for FingerprintJS scripts. So last but not least, we would like to show you how Privacy Badger can be helpful. So you can download it from the Chrome web store or any other web store which has this extension for your respective browser. In the Badger option in the extension above, we'll show you if there are any trackers or something like that. And you can change the settings and going into the options. So here you can do a very important step of learn to block new trackers from your browsing. However, this may compromise the system, but in the future, it's a very good tool as it can learn new types of trackers which people are inventing. Privacy Badger has a list of 1161 potential tracking domains which they have blacklisted. Either they've removed the cookies, either they've removed the access, or they don't allow any sort of tracking, whether it's a cookieless or a cookie-based tracking. We would like to show how Privacy Badger is working. So I'm in yahoo.com. So using this, I wanted to click on buy sandals, so I opened the website. So when opening on this website, there was some associated tracker which was tracked, and one potential tracker has been blocked as it was there in their blacklist. So it was actually fonts from Google. So we still don't know why Google need to have trackers while providing us with fonts. This, our video presentation ends here today. We hope that you all were able to gain some insights about how behavioral fingerprinting works, and especially through your browser, how the swipes you make, how the system you use can be uniquely used to determine you. Also, the fact that the library that we have used here to show, FingerprintJS, is an open source library, which leads us to ponder upon the question that whether effective policy making decisions need to be brought into open source development of technologies also. Thank you.